Okay, so we are live streaming. Hi, everyone. So we are going to wait a little bit so that we have a few more people in here before we get started. And it is currently 1 o'clock Eastern. So we'll start at around in about 2 minutes.
As people are coming in, there is a question that has been posted in the chat on the Zoom. If you would like to share the area about where you're from. We're also going to ask for the beginning portion that everyone mute themselves as is or as per usual. Thank you.
Okay.
And also for those of you joining in on YouTube, if you would like to share the area about where you are.
I think they should share the area about which they.
If you can tell what I'm attempting to say, share where you're from. That's it.
That's absolute perfection. Okay, let's get
on brand.
Started. 100%. Let's get started. So I'm seeing that we have that same side-by-side situation. So I'm just trying to get the YouTube view to be a little bit different.
Okay.
Okay, why don't we start? And
we had a friend who was just in Nairobi.
Yes. All right, everyone. So let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Octavia E. Butler Slow Read. This is our live show. Let me record. We are recording. Just so that Siri is ready for us. We are recording, and we are also live streaming to Onyx Pages on YouTube as we do. So today's live book chat is about Adulthood Rites by Octavia Butler. It is book 2 of the Xenogenesis series, or the Lilith's Brood series. So welcome. For those of you who are new here, just to let you know a little bit about what this is, I say this because I was reviewing some of the comments in our survey, and sometimes there's a little bit of confusion perhaps about the difference between the live show and the slow reading session. So at our live shows, we assume that you have read Adulthood Rites. This is an opportunity to have a deep, slow, luxurious conversation about what we have read. So we won't be like going through it and reading it together like we would in the slow reading sessions that preceded our time today. Okay, so with that, we are going to get started. So Sade, can you go to the next slide, please?
Hello. Okay, so we're going to start this slow read as we do each, I was going to say each month, but every other month, with our dedication to the wonderful and amazing Octavia Estelle Butler. You wrote for freedom, yours and ours. We honor this when we read slowly, luxuriously, and collectively, exactly as you imagined. We are your legacy.
Isis, can you take us through the agenda?
Yes, you're muted.
I
Isis.
was, but I'm sorry. I was like, okay, take two. Hi, everyone. So I am Isis. I'm glad to see people from all over the country and all over the world. I have the pleasure of walking you through today's agenda. So first up, welcome. Welcome. We're so happy you're here. Tati has walked us through the dedication. Next, Njeri will walk us through the group agreement. Then the piece de resistance, the group chat. So it'll start off with the host reflection. So Njeri, Tati, and I will talk through like what we thought of adulthood rights. Then we'll have breakout rooms for group discussions in a more intimate setting. We'll follow that by group engagement, which there'll be a sound circle and group selfies. Then we'll close out with announcements and all that fun stuff. So super happy you're here and really excited about this discussion.
So we just wanted to say thank you to Sade. Sade is our digital alchemist who will be assisting us with moving folks into breakout rooms and managing any technology. So if you have any technology issues and you are you're participating through Zoom, feel free to send Sade a private message through the chat function and they will assist you as need be. We begin our discussions with a group agreement that is in alignment with Octavia E. Butler's writing and her praxis. So as you know, all that we touch, we change, and all that we change changes us. As spoken by Lauren Oya Olamina in Parable of the Sower. And so in keeping with that, it's important for us to remember that we are touching each other in various ways during our slow reading live shows. And so I'm going to be reading the group agreement with the request that you indicate your agreement with each of these rules, essentially. So the first is center Black, Indigenous voices, the voices of people of color in our discussion. Octavia E. Butler was a Black woman. This event has been brought to you by Black folks, and it is important for us to remember that our voices are central in this work, in her writing, and in anything that sort of comes from what we create as hosts. So if you are not a person who identifies as Black, Indigenous, or a person of color in this space, what we ask of you is to be mindful about the space that you're taking up in the conversation and how you are communicating. And we ask you to center the voices of Black folks, Indigenous folks, and people of color in our discussion. This does not mean do not speak at all. It means be mindful of the space that you're taking up, and ensure that the way that you're communicating, how much you communicate and what you communicate is part of co-creating a space where the voices of BIPOC folks are respected. Speak mindfully. So all of Octavia Estelle Butler's works deal with a lot of challenging issues like trauma and abuse and oppression. So these conversations land on us differently based on who we are and our life circumstances. And of course, we're having this conversation in the midst of a global pandemic that has disproportionate impacts on different communities that we're a part of. So these conversations aren't neutral. So as we're having them, please be mindful about what you are saying. Please be mindful about what you need, and feel free to reach out to the person who's facilitating your small group discussion, or to Sade, or to others as we're having the conversation. So please be mindfully and speak mindfully. Hatred will not be tolerated. That's pretty self-explanatory. We will not accept racism, transphobia, any other forms of hatred and violence in the space. If any of the hosts notice that it's going on, we will address it. If you see something, please let us know and we can address it. And we are very comfortable with making decisive action very quickly, because we want to maintain a space where all of us can connect. And of course, share responsibly. We encourage you to tell other people about the Octavia E. Butler Slow Read. It is a labor of love. We want folks to participate and know about it. So feel free to tweet while the event is happening. Please hashtag us, of course. Feel free to share it on Instagram, on your Facebook pages with your friends and family. However, if you are sharing something that another person is saying, make sure that you ask first before you share their comment. And you can do that by sending them a private chat and asking for permission and getting consent before sharing what somebody has had to say. I'll speak for myself. I'm fine with you sharing whatever I'm saying or taking pictures of me or anything like that. And if the other hosts, Tati and Isis, have a concern with that, they can certainly let you know, but just practice getting consent first. So if you are in agreement with these asks, then please feel free to stay and participate in this event. If you are unable to abide by these agreements, we invite you to leave now, and you can reach out to us and touch base with us about the agreements at a later time. And that's our group agreement.
All right, a couple of things before we begin. Make sure to have your book ready at the end of the discussion. When we come back from our breakout sessions, there will be a group selfie that will be taken. So have your book ready so that you can hold it up, your book or your e-reader, however you are in taking this information, this material in. I'm having an issue with words today. This is going to be a very interesting experience. Also, make sure to flag short excerpts for the sound circle. If you've never participated in a sound circle before, it is a beautifully unique experience that we will also have when we return from our breakout sessions. There will be spoilers. We are discussing a book that we have completed in its reading. So while the discussion will focus on the book, there will be spoilers about things that have happened in the book. So please know that by staying, you are fine with spoilers. And then also on the piggyback of what Njeri shared in the slide previously, if you notice something, say something. If you see something that needs to be shared with the three of us, you can certainly send us something in a private chat and we will handle it accordingly. No, we don't have issues. And also to piggyback on what Njeri said, it's the internet. I'm fine with picture and shit that I say, because I say shit all the time. So I'm fine with it being shared if you would like to do so.
So this is just a little summary of what we're reading. Okay. So yeah, because it looked like the one from like last time, and I was like, but it's for Lilith Wood overall. So that's what was processing my mind very slowly. Sorry. So what we're currently reading, Lilith Ayapo is in the Andes, mourning the death of her family. When war destroys the earth, centuries later, she is resurrected by miraculously powerful, unearthly beings, the Oankali. Driven by an irresistible need to heal others, the Oankali are rescuing our dying planet by merging genetically with mankind. But Lilith and all humanity must now share the world with uncanny and unimaginably alien beings, their own children. I think that was it. Mercury must be in retrograde.
It's totally fine. I think the slide after that just had the synopsis for Adulthood Rites.
Got it. Okay.
So we're in book 2 of the Xenogenesis series, and just as a brief synopsis, here we are in the middle of the story. So in this sequel to Dawn, Lilith Iapo has given birth to what looks like a normal, quote unquote, we will talk about normal in our small chats, human boy named Akin. But Akin actually has 5 parents, a male and female human, a male and female Oankali, and a sexless Uloi. The Oankali and Uloi are part of an alien race that rescued humanity from a devastating nuclear war, but the price they exact is a high one. The aliens are compelled to genetically merge their species with other races, drastically altering both in the process. On a rehabilitated Earth, this new race is emerging through human Oankali Uloi mating, but there are also pure humans who choose to resist the aliens and the salvation they offer. These resistors are sterilized by the Uloi so that they cannot reproduce the genetic defect that drives humanity to destroy itself, but otherwise they are left alone unless they become violent. When the resistors kidnap young Akin, the Oankali choose to leave the child with his captors, for he, the most human of the Oankali children, will decide whether the resistors should be given back their fertility and freedom, even though they will only destroy themselves again. This is the 2nd volume in Octavia Butler's Xenogenesis series, a powerful tale of alien existence, and so much more. So that is one telling of what Adulthood Rites is. So now is where we share our thoughts about the book very briefly. Tati, Isis, and I, before we go into our small group discussions, feel free to respond to the things that we're saying in the chats, whether you're on YouTube or watching through Zoom. Sade, I'll ask you to stop screen sharing for now. And who would like to go first? Not me.
I'll go first.
Okay.
You know I ain't shy. So thoughts on adulthood rights. Okay, so here we are dealing with the fallout from everything that has transpired in book 1. Lilith is finally allowed to come to Earth, but to an Earth that has been a section of Earth, a village that has been manufactured, created by the Oankali, and it is in itself part ship living on Earth. And in all of this, she's had multiple children. None of these children are male because males give birth on their own to the human contradiction, which causes humanity to act in ways that destroys itself. Here's Akin, who is finally allowed to be born as a human-born male. And the thing that gets me about this whole experience is how precious or special the Oankali say Akin is supposed to be. Yet they are willing to do and things that risk his existence from day one, his and Lilith's existence. There are things about him he does not have, while he has, I'm going to call them ports for lack of a better word, because he has the spaces on his back where his tentacles will eventually grow. And he looks like a regular boy, but his main sensory tentacle is his tongue. So that's disadvantage, because the only way that he can learn in a way that the Oankali learn is to get up close and personal to you, close enough so that his mouth will touch you and he can lick you. That's not something humans really like. And then they allow him to be taken after they discover where he's been, after he's kidnapped. And he's left with Tate and Gabe, which their reoccurrence, return to the story is also very interesting, in this city of Phoenix. And with the thing that gets me a lot, and I don't think I got this the first time that I read this book, because I've read this over 20 years ago. It's our ability to continuously fuck up. Like, we're given opportunity in this book, opportunity after opportunity and yes, you may not like, what humanity is, because at this point, there are no people who are not constructs. Everyone who is on Earth has been modified by the Oankali in some way, shape, or form. Their existence truly shows that you're alive for 3 centuries and some change. So that's not something that humans can do on their own. Everything about them now is construct. You're still alive. You can't have kids. A lot of you heal very well, very quickly, and there are genes that are in you, Tate, for example, with the gene for Huntington's, that have been muted to allow you to have this existence without the threat of death and physical instability that those things give. And yet and still, we find villages that we learn through the story have been basically taken for all that they can be taken for by the Oankali ships. And of the refuse that's left from the Oankali ships, we managed to take that and not only make guns, but make bullets. Why? Because we're raiding each other. Why? Because we know we can't have kids, but we want to raid women so that we can take women and rape women and see if we can have kids. But we know we can't have kids, so we rape them until they can't give us anymore. We beat them to death and kill them. That's just how humans are just acting. Because we did such a good job with Earth the first go around. As I got to the end of this book, I realized, I was like, man, this is a really good series for those who are, is it Generation Z? I don't know the alphabet where generations are concerned. Whether with the much higher concentration or acknowledgement of being eco-friendly and how things damage the Earth and things we do damage the Earth, that this would be a great series for them to read, because that's what when it's all said and done, that's what really stuck out to me, aside from this whole, journey. This is also where we begin Octavia Butler's desire to have humans on Mars. It starts here. That we're going to get these humans on Mars because Akin, who was sacrificed to live with these humans to learn about them, and in that sacrifice, he's denied, again, Akin is special. He's denied all of the things that are the norm for Oankali construct children. He's denied bonding with his sibling. He's denied growing up and understanding and learning by being taught. He has to teach himself the things that are dangerous and harmful to him. And sometimes his reaction to those things are in ways that make the humans think he's lost his shit. because it's different to them. We also see how in humanity's desire, the humans' desire to live what is supposed to be a normal life. And there's this whole idea of what normalcy is when everything has changed, which is also interesting to read in the throes of a pandemic, when everybody wants to get back to normal, but the normal that we knew in 2019 is not the normal that will exist. And it's a new normal. They have a new normal. They're stuck on getting to the old normal. You can't get back there. There are so many things. There are so many things. And as disjointed as this may seem, this is what my brain was, because I didn't have these thoughts when I read this book over 20 years ago. This is it's like a whole new experience. And I'm grateful for this whole new experience and reading it during this time, because whatever in going to the next book, whatever they're going to discover or create as their normal is going to look nothing like what it looked before. And the decision and the abject refusal to have relationship with the Oankali, with an Uloi, has really left a lot of the humans who wanted normal so despondent that they're just like, fuck it all, I'm gonna kill myself, as opposed to thinking about doing things in different ways. So yeah, there's a lot to think about with this book. There's a lot that I'm still thinking about with this book. But what gets me the most is like humans can be really, really trash ass people. But as trashy as humans can be, humans are still going to stand firm in their trash ashiness and try to protect it, even to their own detriment. Thanks, Octavia.
In true form. Isis, do you want to, on that happy and accurate note, Isis, do you want to go next, or do you want me to go next?
Yeah, no, I can go next.
Okay.
I'm ready. So I speed listened to Adulthood Rites last night, this morning. When I read it the first time, I think I was so, for all of the whole Xenogenesis series, the creativity and the level of imagination in creating like this biological experience in the book that Octavia E. Butler created for us. I think this time I was so blown away with using the experience of the Oankali to analyze the sociology of humanity, right? On Earth, in the ship, back at Earth, and how we operate. So I think when we do our breakout room, there'll be a lot of discussion of like, what are some of the themes and the theories that Butler is presenting to us about humanity, not just as different ethnic groups, but as a race, and allowing that contrast with the Oankali and the different genders and roles of the Oankali. So that's what hit me this time. Also, what I liked in reading it this time, which I didn't have so much a sense of the first time, are recurring themes in Butler's work. So you have the theme of consent, which was a big theme in Dawn, which is a big theme and throughout the Patternist series. And in Dawn, in Adulthood Rites, really about Lilith and how Nikaj got her to reproduce and wasn't really consensual. It's like, it's what she wanted, but didn't really ask for. I was like, that doesn't sound like consent to me, dude. But then you have the theme of breeding, which was very similar to what we read in Patternist with the Oankali. It's like, we're traders and this is what we're hardwired to do. In the Patternist series, we have Duro, like in his breeding experiments. I also noticed like the hyperempathy. So the Oankali experience the pain and pleasure that they give to each other and to humans. And that mirrored what we'll see with Lauren Alamina in Parable of the Sower and Parable of Talents. I liked the theme of resettling. We see them resettling Earth and the possibility of them resettling Mars. That's the thing that we read about in Survivor, where the humans are like, do we settle here? Do we like go someplace else? So I like that theme, and like, how do you move with change and have a different view, and like when things are different. And then also, like Tati mentioned this, like that longing for the past. So we saw the stepmom, or we'll see the stepmom in Parable of the Story, kind of long for the days before the pox. And we see that here again with the human survivors, like longing for the days before the war. So yeah, so those are some of the themes that I saw, like that mirrored themes in some of Butler's older works. So I'm excited to dive deeper into that. Also, I love show and tell. So I'll share my screen because in my mind, the first time I read it, I was like, I can't really picture the Oankali. And then I found like this YouTube video, which is way too long to show here, which I was like, oh, this is what these people look like. So I found this interesting book cover, which, can y'all see my screen?
Yeah.
And y'all see like a picture?
Uh-huh.
Of a guy in green. So this is supposed to be a depiction of a kin. I thought he looked like less hairy. But yeah, so this is a depiction of a kin. I'm assuming this is after his transition. And then so I found this, and then I want to give a preface before. An artist created what would be an Oankali construct of Octavia E. Butler. And I find it fascinating. And we can talk about more about this in my group, like what we think about it. So this is the image of like Octavia E. Butler as an Oankali construct. I was like, oh, this is very interesting and fascinating to me. So I'll close with those images as I transition to Njeri. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Isis. There's so much to say about adulthood rights. I want to frame my comments by talking about some of the lingering questions and curiosities that I'd like to talk about in our group. So the title, Adulthood Rites. So rites of passage are things that communities will take, usually like teenagers, through as they come of age. It usually involves some kind of isolation, and then maybe access to inner knowledge or external or magical or spiritual guidance. And then usually, in order for the rite of passage to be successful, usually there's a learning or a change or a decision or a sacrifice that will happen. And then once the individual emerges from the rite, they are now, they've now moved on to another stage. And I think that like this title has me asking, who is the adult that we're talking about? Is Octavia E. Butler taking us through Akin's rite of passage from childhood and adolescence to adulthood? Or is Octavia E. Butler taking us through humanity's rite of passage? Was the war a big like tantrum, or like was it an example of humanity's lack of maturation in terms of its own self-preservation? And was the time on the ship prior to returning to Earth a kind of like, I don't know, like adolescence or journey? And is the return to Earth the passage that humanity is being expected to go through in order to prove that it's ready to be an adult, right? To be an adult human race, to be able to reproduce and do the things. Because the fact that the Oankali took away the reproductive rights and agencies of humanity, certain like bodies aren't able to reproduce until a particular age. So it's kind of like imposing an adolescence, or imposing a very paternalistic and condescending state among like it's forced sterilization, right? Among humanity, until humanity can prove something. And so is it humanity that's going through this rite of passage into what we hope will be its adulthood? So that's a question I have in my group, like, who's the adult? What's the rite of passage? Was it successful? Another thought that I have is it's my fascination with the Oankali. Are they vicious aliens that care not about humanity, that are here to colonize and destroy? And is the Oankali colonizer metaphor right? Is it appropriate? How far does that metaphor get us in understanding Octavia E. Butler's goals with this particular book? Are the Oankali benevolent? Do they care about humanity? Do they really want humanity to be better? Or are they impacted by their desire to, their compulsion for merging and changing and genetic like intermingling with certain races, right? I think one thing that we discover in Adulthood Rites, one thing I discovered when rereading it, was the Oankali project, which wasn't revealed to the humans, which Akin became aware of, and the viciousness, I think, of it, or that's at least how it's landing on me right now. So I want to hear more about how folks feel about the Oankali's project, and also how different is the Oankali's project from what humans do to each other. And then another thought that I have is about this notion of the human condition, the human contradiction. The Oankali see humans as perpetually violent and destructive, particularly human males, which, of course, Octavia Butler's work is not complex when it comes to the gender spectrum and sexual orientation and gender identity. And so reading it in 2021 and reading it at a place in my life as a queer woman, there are things that I'm seeing and assumptions that weren't properly addressed in this particular work as it relates to sexual orientation, bodily autonomy, and gender identity. That said, it's very, very clear that the Oankali see that the problem with the human contradiction is human males, and that the violence that the Oankali are concerned about mainly is killing, ending life, right? And yet there are other violences that happen within the resistor groups that the Oankali seem to tolerate or not identify as violence in the same way. So the abductions, the sexual violence, all sorts of things, right? So I'm really curious about our thoughts on what the human problem is truly, and why the Oankali see certain forms of violence as more problematic perhaps than others. And also, I think it's interesting that the Oankali can see what humans do to each other as really violent, but seem to consistently present themselves as a benevolent force. And I think that's something that's quite consistent with stories of colonization that I've understood. There's a rationalizing meta story that justifies what is being done. And I guess my favorite moment in the story is when Akin is back in the ship and is able to share with the Oankali the feeling of loss and disconnection, disorientation, and lack of agency, which is and ends up being an impetus for change. And I found that moment really interesting. So there's something to be said there about empathy. And I echo what you were saying, Isis. I like the connection you drew between like the hyper empathy of the Oankali, what we're going to see in Parable of the Sower. And I also think that in the Patternist series, we saw like in the pattern, the ability to be affected by each other's like emotions and thoughts and so on. So definitely a theme for Octavia Butler is, if we could truly feel how others felt, if we could feel what the impact of what we did to other people, would that change our decisions? I think I know Tati's answer to that question, but that is what I took from Adulthood Rites. I think it was a spectacular novel. I can't wait for Imago, and I can't wait to talk to all of you about it. Sade, if you can take us back to the slides, we will transition into our next part. So as you know, one of the things that I did on my channel was hold slow reading sessions, which are sessions that precede the live show where we read together and talk at intervals about what we are reading. So we did that, and we ended our read yesterday. So we had 4 sessions, and there were some questions that were asked during the session that I wanted to bring into this discussion. So some were here. So would you feel different about the Oankali invasion if humanity had not been on the brink of extinction when they arrived? What strategies did the humans employ to respond to the Oankali? What strategy would you have chosen? The Oankali's main concern about the human contradiction is human beings' habit of killing each other despite the frequent abduction and abuse of women and children. What do you make of the Oankali's lack of concern for these forms of violence given their benevolence? So those may or may not be themes that you'd like to pick up in the group discussions, but a couple of questions here. And I just want to encourage you to take a look at the chat, as well as the chat in the YouTube discussion as well. If you're on YouTube, feel free to put in the chat any questions you'd like to discuss in the small groups as well. So we can go to the next slide, and I think we're ready to discuss. So for those of you who are new, right now, Sade is going to be opening some breakout rooms and dividing us into breakout rooms for our discussions. We are going to have 3 spaces where we are going to be talking about adulthood rights. We will have about 45 minutes in those small groups to have those discussions. Tati, Isis, and I will each facilitate one of the small group discussions. There will be one discussion that will take place on YouTube. So if you find yourself in the main room after we have been divided into groups, that means that the discussion that you have been, the discussion group that you have been assigned to is going to be live streamed. So you will be seen on camera and you'll be recorded, and your comments will be captured. If you do not want to be in a live group discussion that will be captured, please let Sade know, and they will transfer you to one of the breakout rooms that will not be recorded. Okay, so just to let you know that. And I think that's about it. Tati, Isis, have I left anything out?
I think that's everything.
Yeah, I think that's it. My unmute was not responding. Okay. Yeah, I think you got it all.
All right, so I'll hand it over to you, Sade, to move us into our discussion groups.
Sounds good. So I see one message doesn't want to be in the breakout room. That's totally fine. You are in, or doesn't want to be in the main live stream room. You're in a breakout room, so you won't be seen. I'll give everyone a few more seconds. If anyone wants to send a message to me, letting me know. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and open the breakout rooms. You should see a message pop up on your screen asking if you want to join a breakout room. If you're going to join, just click accept or yes, whatever the positive answer is. And if you don't see that message, that means you're going to be in the main room. So I'm just going to go ahead. Oh, just saw one more message. Okay, you are not. Yes, you're also not in the main room either. Okay, so I will go ahead and open the rooms.
Yes, Latrice, your hair looks absolutely fantastic and amazing.
Glory to the gods.
It's so nice to see everyone here, and especially people who have been with us for over a year now. So this is amazing.
Yes.
This is really amazing.
Oh, and in Njeri, you probably won't see a message because you're the host, but you can join Breakout Room 1 if you can see it.
Yep, thank you.
Yes.
I'll head there now.
All right. Okay. We are going to go ahead and get started. Now, I have had my time to speak. So what I'd like to start doing, and I'm going to open this to those of you who are in the chat as well. I do have my phone so that I can see in Njeri's chat on YouTube. So I'm going to open the floor. If anyone would like to share their initial thoughts after reading Adulthood Rites, and we can go from there. Please feel free to do so. Unmute and have at it.
First off, hi Tati. I never get you. I love this one personally. This is one of my favorites that we've read so far, and I've only read up into this one, and this is top 3. For sure. I really loved the writing overall. I loved the flow of the story. I was obsessed with Akin the entire time. I really like what she did with the different themes in this story and explored it enough where it wasn't too much and it wasn't too little. And I really think that you can see the growth in her storytelling in this novel versus Dawn, versus even the Pattern Master series. And I just thought it was, I think Maria might have said this on the live where it feels complete. It was either Maria or Christina, I can't remember, but it feels more complete than normal, or like from Dawn. And I really resonated with that. So I really enjoyed it a lot.
Yay. You are a hard nut to crack. So I appreciate that. That makes me happy. Anyone else would like to share?
Yeah, I think Christina said that, but I totally agree. Literally.
Mimi, go for it.
So ladies, I know this is being recorded and I don't have a problem saying it. So just the title alone, I literally had to do an emergency move from Indy to Seattle within 2 weeks, literally. That was my adulthood right. So when things are, the physical moving, that also had to go with the emotional moving. To pack up and travel 2,400 miles to the west, to nowhere. I've never been the west. The furthest I've been west was Indianapolis on the west side. But to have to go and move to the corner of the United States, right? The title just sits with me because my twin daughters and I, just passing through 7 to 8 states, seeing different things that we've seen on National Geographic. Those little things that are so important to us for the experience, just passing through the word rights. And that's rights as in the passage, and then rights as in my mind can do it, it resonates with me on both sides. On both sides. And those that do go through their adult rights for whatever they are, it's a lot painful sometimes, many times it's painful, but I have enjoyed the experience, even though the reason we left was not the reason the experience happened. So I'm going to listen to you ladies do this. I so appreciate you all doing this. I really do.
All right. Anyone else would like to share their thoughts on the book? So as you're thinking, I do like in Njeri's question. And Njeri, when she reads, she has all of these, like her mind is consistently moving to think of these questions as she's reading and present them in a way that is coherent. I don't have that sauce. So I'm gonna steal one of her questions, borrow one of her questions. She put it on the internet. It's borrowing with attrition given. Who do you think the adult is in this story? Who is the adult? Because we know that we see Akin go through being an infant to being an adolescent, and his adolescence is longer than a typical human adolescence longevity, because he's still considered an adolescent when he's in his 20s, and he only achieves metamorphosis because of Gabe. We'll get to Gabe. So in this, who is, because the humans are learning through this experience, and so are the Oankali. The Oankali are consistently learning because they've never dealt with a type of species like humanity before. So not even who are the adults, but in looking at the idea of adulthood rites and this idea of going, like Njeri said, from infancy to pubescence to adulthood, where do you think, maybe the question is, where do you think we are for the three people, the three entities is not the right words that we're dealing with in this story, the Oankali, the humans, and the constructs? Anybody? Don't everybody speak at once. Go ahead, Gloria.
Yeah, this is such a great question. I think that, of course, Akin is going through his adulthood, right? As he changes and learns more about both sides of his heritage, and he's able to see both sides as being, part of both species. It's and I love how Butler writes about his experiences with his tongue and being able to sense and everything. But yeah, as far as humanity going through an adulthood rite, I think it's a very humbling experience for all of humans at this point in the book. I mean, the whole experience is hugely humbling, because here humans have to acknowledge they are not the most powerful beings in their universe, and they have been subjected by this other species more powerful than they are and than we are. And just as we have, caused other species on our planet to submit, and we've controlled them, for food or for, medical experiments and all this stuff we do to other species on our planet, we have been then subjected to the same power structure. So humans having to deal with how are they going to respond to this, how are they going to adapt, or whether they do adapt, that's all part of their transition into, the next phase.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to share? Liz, you unmuted. Was that an accident?
I wanted to give somebody else a chance to talk, but I agree with Gloria there, and I agree with Njeri. I think when we're thinking about adulthood rites, I think it's twofold. You have Akin, you see his story from baby all the way up until his metamorphosis, and then it ends. But if you really think about humanity, we tried to kill each other in the first book. We had to be put to sleep almost back inside of a womb. And Njeri talked about that on the live yesterday as well, which I never even thought about. I was like, oh yeah, you're right? So they had to be woken up again, retaught how to act, what to do, how to adapt if you wanted to adapt. And if you look at it from the perspective of the resistors, they're resisting So it's almost as if they're stuck in their adolescence because they refuse to adapt to continue living on Earth, but instead you want what you want, and that's what children do, right? That's adolescence, right? So in essence, you have not taken the next step to adulthood, which requires adaptation. Not assimilation, but adaptation. You must adapt to your new circumstances in order to grow as a human being, as an adult. So I think from my perspective, that's where I really was for adulthood rights. And it's so crazy how she kind of subtly puts that in as a theme, to really think about, it's not just a Ken's story, even though he's the protagonist, it's about everyone in there and then their parts and how they play into the rite of passage.
Yeah, thank you for making that whole statement, because I kept thinking of this as just Akeem's story, number one, because I like Akeem as a character. But also when you have the requirement to adapt, which humanity is refusing to do, or some people, and like we hear from the resistors, but the only two people that we hear from who are choosing to stay with the Oankali are Lilith and Tino. There are other people who are in this community on low, or of low, that make up the humans that are in community and in families with the Oankali, but we don't hear from them. But in all of that, Akeem's ability and willingness to adapt. Akeem shows a huge amount of sense when it comes to looking at his situation, and it comes through really loud and clear when his abduction happens, because the abduction happens and he realizes partway through, when he's grabbed and he's being held, he realizes, I'm not crying. Human babies cry. It's going to come off weird if I don't cry. So he cries. Point blank, period. The only thing that he maintains that he will not do is shit his pants, because he's like, I can clean up after myself. I can use the bathroom. You all will not have to change my diaper. But his ability to make that change, and it's like, it's almost immediate. Yet humanity's inability to make that change, or unwillingness to make that change, to understand we're not what we used to be, physically or mentally or emotionally, for the experiences that we've had, because they all remember Earth being destroyed. They all remember that. They all have had the experience of being awoken by the Oankali and having to be brought into what this new realization is before they're brought to Earth. They've all had that experience. They have all had the experience of mating with, say that, Maria, say it, like unmute and say that.
I'm sorry, I forget we're on the live. Not everyone's going to be able to see the chat, but just human beings being so willing to like cut off our own nose to spite our face rather than change in a new situation.
Yes, and we see that over and over again. In fact, the only point where there is a willingness to change is at the end, when Tate is facing Mars and death. And Tate decides, I want to go to Mars. That's when Tate says, I will let myself be in the power of an Uloi so that they can heal me and get rid of, so basically for Tate, we met Tate and Dawn. Tate had partially undergone the genetic reformation that was supposed to be happening. Her Huntington's gene had been suppressed, but had not been removed. And in order for it to have been removed, she would have had to develop a relationship with Kaguyat to allow to link to her
and remove that gene and replace it with something else. And she wasn't willing to undergo that kind of change, just that simple kind of change. So instead it was repressed. And here it goes. And it's when Akin is able, again, adapting, he's able to look at what has taken place in her body through his using of his tongue and tell her plain and simple, this is what has happened. This is probably why it's happened. This is what's going to need to happen to keep you from dying. You're going to need an ooloi. I can do a little bit, but you're going to need an ooloi. If you don't die, you might go to Mars. And then all of a sudden Tate's like, oh shit, okay, let's make this happen. And so it's that incentive so it's not even the incentive of continuing to exist after you watched your people destroy your planet. And you're just like, I just want to give us another chance to fuck it up. Okay. But you can't fuck it up here. You're going to have to fuck it up on Mars. And now, okay, yes, I would like to do that. Anyone else like to share?
I felt the same way. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I jump in front of somebody?
I've been waiting for you.
Oh,
I've been waiting for you. Let's go.
Because the way Akin has been learning since the time he was born. That's what he had his tongue for. He has been learning. And the thing is, we as humans are very, very stubborn. And we don't want to progress. And that was the whole issue. So once you give them some candy, they're satisfied. That's all they see is the candy. It's like a carrot, okay, if I do this, then I can go to Mars. So, and that was the thing. I kind of forgot exactly what would happen once they get to Mars. But see, this is the thing. Once you get to Mars, you're going to destroy Mars too. So after that, then what? You have nothing. So right. It's crazy how we as humans don't want to improve. You're given a second chance at life. Granted, you have to go through this in order to continue. So it's a give and take. And it's with anything, you're given another set of lungs. So in order to continue with those set of lungs, don't do this, or improve your eating habits, or improve your, exercise more in order to capitulate on those lungs. If not, the lungs won't work. Continue to, it's just certain things you have to do. But I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of work. And that's also the amazing side. Amazing can mean many things. It does not mean a good thing when I say it in this case. But that's the amazing, portion of this. When they get to Mars, Akin is very clear in stating, you will have to work. You will have to build, there are things that the Oankali can do to make the planet accept you and make you acceptable to the planet, but you're going to have to work to be able to build things here. You're going to have to work to be able to grow things here. And humans will go to Mars and put in all of that work and destroy it. One of the things that Akin realizes while he is with the humans, and I don't remember if it's in the Phoenix section or in the Chahichdok, the ship names section, where he realizes the struggle, where he realizes what Earth will be once the Oankali leaves. Because a lot of the humans in Dawn, who are here from Dawn, are banking on the Oankali leaving Earth to them so that they can go about their business. And the fact of the matter is, when the Oankali leaves, there will be nothing left of Earth. And when Akeem realizes that, that's when Akeem makes, and again, I said in my thoughts on this of how Akeem is supposed to be special, and the ways that I feel the Oankali sacrificed him to do to do the work that they could have been doing in all of the years since before Akeem was born, and left Akeem to basically do their dirty work. And Akeem is the only one who could, because Akeem looked human. But in that realization, that's when he realizes, I've got to get these resistors off of Earth. So, question: Akeem's compassion for the resistors, to me, was a beautiful thing. I think Akeem showed a lot more compassion for the resistors than oftentimes we as humans in real life show for people that we know day to day. And these are, Akeem's been manhandled. He's been carried around by his feet like a sack of potatoes or a bag of onions by these men who have treated him like crap on the road or on the boat to attempting to sell him somewhere. And would anyone like to speak on that? Because to me, that was very powerful for me. Seeing his compassion and knowing that one of the humans that was the meanest to him was on the brink and verge of death, and still feeling the need and the compulsion to heal him, to encourage him to go to, because he was too young at that point to do anything for him, but to encourage him to go to the Oankali, to have an Uloi heal him, so that he would not die, but still dealing with and having in the back of his mind, I won't be that mad if he dies. Having that very real thought and choosing to think the better as opposed to the bad. Any thoughts on that or anything around that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I remember reading that section and trying to decide if it was coming from a place of real empathy and compassion. Like I couldn't decide. I was like, is this a human thing or an Oankali thing? Because I couldn't decide if it was coming from empathy and compassion that would be like his human, like really beautiful aspects, maybe his human side, that I'm not sure I see some of the actions of the Oankali coming from those values, but they have such a value for life not ending, for the preservation of life. And I was like, is it coming from that? Is this just the Oankali side of him that's just like, what a waste to let a life end when it doesn't need to? And I couldn't quite decide. I think I was like, I think it might be a place where those things overlapped and actually blended well.
Yes, that's a combination of the two, an amalgamation. A word that I used correctly. Of the two beautiful aspects of humanity and Oankali. Anyone else?
I was just gonna say I agree, because I think we keep getting that back and forth, him tugging with his humanity and him tugging with his Oankali side. And once he starts working with the young Ulu, he starts to see how they manipulate emotions. And he's like, how many people have been manipulating my emotions this entire time? And no wonder I want to wander, because I don't want that influence. I want to make my own decisions. So I think that has something to do with it. And he grappled with that the entire book.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Also, I think we would be remiss if we didn't speak on, because one big thing that Akeem is denied by not being rescued or by not being taken back to the Oankali by Tate is the ability to bond with his sibling. And it's kind of thrown in his face when the two Oankali born construct girls, siblings, are brought to Phoenix, and he has to watch them. And there you see it in their like desire to link with him and include him, yet their inability to do so because he's outside. And you see the same thing when he finally gets back to Low, and he and his sibling know we're supposed to be linked, but we can't. And that's another thing that he shares with the Uloi. And it is a sacrifice a king must make in becoming adult. Yeah, unmute, Gloria. Yes, but I don't like that sacrifice. I don't like that, because to me, in my mind, in reading this, Akin to me is as special as the Oankali say he's supposed to be, yet don't seem to hold him in. And so I don't want him to have to, I don't want that to have to be his sacrifice, because it still sets him apart. Like the reason why there haven't been any human-born construct males is because of this contradiction of how that the Oankali perceive of how destructive males are. Well, the Oankali have something put in place in their entire makeup of the difference of makeup of a family, you know, the different dynamics and personalities that make up the family, to kind of keep those things at bay, because you have Oankali males who are not necessarily all altruistic, yet they come. Oh, was that 45 minutes? Wow. Okay.
You're muted.
No, it's not 45 minutes. I'm just here to make sure that Sade is a co-host to see if I'm needed, and that's it. I'm gonna leave.
Oh, okay. So what was? Oh, they have things in place that, you know, keep that from happening. And one of those things that are in place is the ability to link with your entire family. And Akin is denied that. He is set apart. He is left alone. He is left in solitude. And even being amongst all of these other people, he is alone because they all know he's different and they don't want but so much to do with him. Even Gabe doesn't look at him differently until they go on their little camping trip while they are hiding from what they think will be the Oankali coming back to find him. So I don't want that to be his sacrifice. Anyone else? I see that there are a lot of comments that people on YouTube are missing, so please share.
I think it kind of messed him up a little bit for later. And he was very upset because he couldn't bond with his sibling. And he was also, I don't know if it was in this book or the next, supposed to be with his father, the male Oankali, so he can bond with him. So it was certain, due to him being with the resistors for so long, even though he's learning along the way, because he learned how to do different things, because he would get sick, have to heal himself. It was certain things he was learning as he was away. But I think being that he wasn't able to bond, that bothered him. And certain things that was happening while he was away, it's like a ripple effect. Certain things happen later. So, and that's really what the cause of him being by himself. So it'll happen in the next book, of course, but I think it hurt him in a sense.
I agree completely, and I think that's all part of his messianic nature, right? In order to save the folks, he has to sacrifice being truly of the alien race so that he can bond enough with the human side.
Yeah, I think I agree with that as well, Lisa, because and Jennifer, because if you think about it, when it was at some point when he was with the Akaje, they said that all of the things that you've gone through was appointed for you. It was supposed to happen for you. So if he would have stayed in the village and bound with his sister, even though that was a bad decision and everyone thought that was a bad decision to not allow that to happen, if he would have done that, he would have wanted to stay a mate instead of having his own analysis of what's going on what to do the next time. That would have been almost non-existent, because he would have been content. As you can see, before he left to go on the ship, he was talking to one of his siblings, I think, or somebody in his family.
Margie.
And he was like, when I leave, I may not recognize you, you're gonna be pregnant and mating and you'll be fine. And when he came back, that specific word of content was mentioned. So in order to keep that, all right, I know what I have to do, I know what my genes are telling me to do, but in order for me to make this decision and help the human resistors, I have to remove that element from, I have to remove the Oankali element from him in order for him to make that decision. So I think that was brilliantly done. I don't think I made that distinction until Jennifer and Lisa said something, because I think that's very key. If he's going to be the chosen one to help them, if he would have just done what everyone else does, there would be no necessity for him to make that decision.
I mean, y'all making sense. My baby was still sacrificed. Go ahead, Maria.
I keep thinking about, and I don't think it was part one of this book. I think it might have actually been in Dawn. And when, I don't remember who, but one of the Oankali said to Lilith when she was frustrated and they were having a conversation, she was like, I don't understand you. And rather than try to get through to her, like try to, saying, I don't understand you begs for, I'm looking for more understanding. And instead, she was just met with like, yeah, I know you don't. You won't ever, but your children will. And in the time, it annoyed me so much because it seems so freaking condescending.
Mm-hmm.
But now it seems like they also were maybe recognizing that about themselves, saying, we will never understand you as humans. We can put you in these boxes for all this time and study you for all these hundreds of years and try to understand you as much as we can, but we will never actually truly understand you, but our Oankali human children will. And
that is, thank you. That's a really, because they still don't understand each other. They still don't understand each other. Lisa, did you have something you wanted to share?
I wanted to say, I mean, it's a fabulous setup to be a Messiah, but I still get this, I'm eager to keep reading because I get this really feeling in the pit of my stomach that there's something bad that's going to happen, and trying to figure out between the lines what it is, because yeah, he might be a Messiah, but it doesn't seem like these are really gods. So is that really the right thing to do? So I just have this little anxiety and want to read the next book.
Thank you, Maria. You took the words out of my mouth. Maria nicely put in the chat, humans are the bad things that are going to happen. Unfortunately, that is the overarching story plot point in these stories. Absolutely, Gloria. Gloria asked, for those of you who are on YouTube and cannot see the Zoom chat, can we talk about violence being connected mostly with males in OEB's world? Gender essentialism. Absolutely, because we have seen, even though the violence is associated, or the human contradiction is associated with males, in, what was her name? Nell? What was the lady's name who wanted to mutilate the construct on Kali-born children? And her ability to go, Nisi, thank you. And her ability, y'all know I suck with names. Her ability to go through and get people to agree with her. Let's cut off these appendages that belong on these bodies to make them look more like us, so that we can accept them as our own children, even though they'll grow. And if they grow back, we'll keep cutting them off. Like, males are not the only people who are being violent in these stories that we're seeing. Yet the Oankali perception of the human contradiction and the human condition is that violence is produced through male hormones, through the male body. Anyone else would like to expound on that? Gloria, did you have something that you wanted to verbally share on that?
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Sade.
Mhm.
But if I noticed some people might have gotten kicked out of their breakout room because of like connection or anything. So if you want to rejoin, just private message me. I put my a note in the chat so you can see my name. Feel free to reach out if you want to be put back into your breakout room.
Thank you. Go ahead, Gloria.
Yeah, I was just wondering what Butler's experience with males may have been in her life, that she continually portrayed the men as being like the marauders, the raiders, the rapists, they had to have the guns. It's definitely a bleak vision of humanity that we are incapable of changing our sort of social programming, or she's saying it's not social programming, it's something innate within us that is violent against each other. So I don't know, and mostly male. So yes, but your point is so true. Yes, she portrayed a violent female as well, more in the social context of conforming. And then the men were more in charge of like the war. And I guess, if you look at our world, I guess that is the general trend. So what can I say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So someone else asked in the chat, Maria asked in the chat, what happens sometimes and what happens sometimes to intersex. Is that in response to the female genital mutilation comment, Maria?
Yes, that Melody said that Melody said that it was an example was female genital mutilation. And I said it made me think of that, and also the surgery that happens without consent sometimes to intersex babies.
Yeah, and then also that made me think about how binary Octavia Butler's works have been up to this point. The Ooloi is the first non-gendered character that we see in any of her stories up to this point, which I found very interesting, especially with the role that they have, because the Ooloi manage or create life. Jennifer, your sister's comment from the last discussion is just like in my head. They absorb the fluids and they take those and they compartmentalize them and they insert them to make babies and they determine the sex of the babies that are human born. But you even see it, what is his sibling's name? Taikuchak? You even see it with Akin's sibling, because part of their bonding is to help determine whether or not Taikuchak will decide to be male or female, because they're not going to be Ooloi. There's a big binary in a lot of Octavia Butler's works. I am very intrigued as to what her relationship is with men, or was, with men in looking at that, but also the things that we have seen in history and life in general. It's a good proponent, it's a good supporter of that. And then of course we always have the chicks who go for it as well. And we experience, like, we show that. There are times when we show that. There are times when we see things and we're like, yeah, they can get it and it's fine. Would anyone else like to share? Latrice, you unmuted. You do that with purpose.
Yeah, I was thinking back to Dawn, and I'm wondering if the whole male as part of the major part of the human contradiction is because when they were when they were waking people up to see who could help them with whatever they were doing, when they woke up the males, they were the ones fighting them. They were the ones trying to kill everyone. So I think that has to be a part of the decision too, on who made it to low, why there's so many more males in low versus females, because some of the females are still on the ship, or most of the females have decided to live in the villages with Owankali. So I think that those decisions have to be a part of the equation as well, because they saw it firsthand. They're not just making it up because of they could be, but I think it's also because, they were really trying to figure out who can really help them with their decisions. And every time they woke up a male, it was a problem. And that's why in Dawn, they told Lilith, they were like, hey, be careful with the men, because, every time we wake up a man, they try to kill us. So,
yeah,
so I think
and that's why she
woke
up the meek girl. I can't even remember her name before she woke up the brute, because she knew that she was going to go to him and he would be fine as long as he had someone to protect. Yeah, it's like if she had established herself as someone he needed to protect, then he would redirect his ability to use force. That's a very good point. All right, anybody else?
I hadn't thought about that that disproportionate ratio until you mentioned it, Latrice, of like who is with resistors versus who is in the Owankali villages. And considering the Owankali are very selective in what kind of violence they stop and how much sexual violence is happening against women, and other kinds of violence happening against women in those resistor villages, it makes sense that they'd be like, yeah, I think I choose the Owankali. That is just that aspect of having to consider personal safety when the Owankali don't recognize that as a type of violence, even set Lilith up in this first book to encounter that type of violence.
Yeah, just to see what her reaction would be. I mean, these guys are going around stealing children and trading them in villages just for
women.
Like, so that just tells you right there, there's not a lot of available women that they want to be with, because if you're in a village, that means you're changed somehow, right? You have some Owankali genes now, or some type of alteration like Lilith. So they don't want that. They want a regular human woman. And so the proportion to male versus female is very, very low. When I read that, I was like, Octavia, what's going on?
But there are no regular human women
just to go have sex.
Yeah,
what is going on?
But there are no regular human women. They are if
they're not mated. But then you have to go to a village and say, hey, here's a baby that you want. God forbid, because you can't have kids no other time, but let me steal your children.
Yeah, and then
but give me a woman for it.
Right. So how did Tino? How do we have Tino? Tino is the last. Now he's not unaltered because he also cannot reproduce. But Tino is for what we have for this story, the last male born to human parents in existence at this point. Both of Tino's parents are human. He was alive before the war and put to sleep for years. And he remembers the Ooloi. Okay. Biscuits. He remembers the Ooloi. He remembers the Oankali. That's what makes him want to come to Lo. And Tate helps him tells him how to get there. And even as he gets there, because he wants the ability to have children, even as he gets there, there are ways that he's participating in his own self-destruction because he's refusing the help that we see later in the book from Nikanj and from Deshawn. When he's dealing with things that are jacking up his body. Hi, everybody.
Hi. I hope that everyone enjoyed the deep dive conversations. I don't know about you, but 45 minutes like felt too short.
It always does.
It always does, yes.
It always does.
We ended up like, yeah, our last, one of our last defining moments was like, once you go Ula, you don't go back. And I feel like that was the beginning of a conversation, but here we are. So who wants to report back first? Isis, Tati, our group?
I can report back first.
Okay.
So yeah, I think one thing that was interesting, we did a closing vote. Who would go to Mars, who would stay on Earth? So it was 1 abstain, 3 would stay on Earth, 2 would go to Mars. And what do we think would happen? Some people in our group was optimistic that humanity would evolve. Some people were less optimistic. I tend to be really optimistic. I believe in the possibility of humanity evolving. And one of the key takeaways is, so we watched the short film that was kind of based off of a scene in Dawn where Podge like has his first interaction with Lilith. And in seeing that, one of the Kabir says, can we give consent to ourselves? Like there are so many biological imperatives. Can we have like, as human beings, align with internal consent, which I think is a very interesting question. Like as we see the characters kind of navigate that drive to reproduce, the biological changes that as they connect with the Oankali. So I enjoyed it. Thank you for everybody who was a part of my group and discussing adulthood rights with me. I appreciate you.
Thanks.
I'm scrolling back through the chat because Njeri understands how my brain works. We had some very, very good discussions in regards to the sacrifice of Akin and the understanding of the need for it, yet I still hate it, as well as humans' ability to basically cut off, like Maria said, cut off their nose to spite their face. We also had the Mars discussion and the expectations of what would need to happen once humans got to Mars, and the work that humans would need to do once they got to Mars, and they would still destroy Mars. That was a whole topic of discussion, and also the males being violent. We talked about that at the end. It was a very, very good discussion. And thank you everybody for participating with us and not allowing me to be the one who spoke the entire time. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Sharon is gonna speak for our group.
So we talked a bit about how it's interesting that the first thing that the humans made were weapons. And what that means, like why. So we touched on a bit about how humans put their value in creating stuff. And even in a self-sufficient world, they felt the need to have some sort of power and then create a hierarchy from it. Like if we have weapons, then we feel safer and we get some sense of autonomy. So we talked a bit about that. And also our need for sameness and our fear of difference. And so everything was, all the decisions were rooted in fear of dealing with these creatures we didn't understand. We also talked a bit about like the violence, the extreme violence of the Uankali that was kind of presented in a very soft, if you've listened to the audiobook, you know how creepy Nikanja's voice is, and it seems so sweet and innocent, but everything they do is extremely violent. And then we talked a bit about like the idea of gender and sexuality and how it's touched. There were opportunities to maybe see if there could be same-sex relationships, but there was a hetero push. But then also there was sex positive, sex rooted in pleasure with the Uloi, and that's kind of how we ended up with once you go Uloi, you can't go back. So we touched on a lot, and I think it was a really interesting discussion. Yeah.
Thanks, Sharon, and thank you everybody for participating in the small group discussions. We hope that it enriched your read. I know that I kind of want to go back and read some sections too. I need to understand the Akjai better. Akkat. Anyway,
yes, same.
Yes. Please, if we can go to the next slide, Shade, if you can share the screen again. I think we're moving on to the selfie portion. Okay, that's what we're doing. Great. Okay, so if you can undo the screen share, please grab your books or your device, or just get ready to strike a pose. I don't know if it's if I'm supposed to do this, but I'll just do it. We are
I think I usually do it. Like,
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
So basically, if this photograph will be used on our social media, so if you do not want to be seen, then just turn off your cameras and just know that we will see your name, and you can always just send a text to Shade and just say, please remove my name if you don't want it to be seen. And you can do that now. Okay, so hopefully everybody's, ooh, I love seeing the different covers. And Sharon Morris, I love that you have a physical copy of that version. That's amazing. Okay.
Oh, I'm jealous.
Yes, yes. Okay, ready when you are, Shade.
Okay, sounds good. I'm gonna take 3 shots. So 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, last one, 3, 2, 1. Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, if we can share the screen, I think we're gonna explain how the sound circle works to folks who are new. And Tati,
is this me? Okay, sorry. All right, as we go into our sound circle, here's how it works. You choose a 3 to 5 sentence excerpt from the book that you enjoyed, or you thought was poignant, or you just want to hear yourself read, and then you listen to other people read. You wait for a moment of silence, and then read your excerpt. No commentary, no explanation of where it is in the book or what has happened before. You just read and then hush. And then the next person will read and then hush. Okay.
Thank you. All right. Nikanj smoothed its body tentacles in amusement. Anything to do with humans always seems to involve contradictions. It paused. Examine Tino. Inside him, so many very different things are working together to keep him alive. Inside his cells, mitochondria, a previously independent form of life, have found a haven and trade their ability to synthesize proteins and metabolize fats for room to live and reproduce. We're in his cells too now, and the cells have accepted us.
Akeem had never been aroused by the scent of a new lord before. He liked them, but only resistor and consort women had interested him sexually. What could an immature Uloi do for anyone sexually anyway?
Humans persecute their different ones, yet they need them to give themselves definition and status.
Human beings fear difference, Lilith had told him once. Oankali craved difference. Humans persecute their different ones, yet they needed to give them definition and status. Oankali seek difference and collect it. They needed to keep themselves from stagnation and over-specialization.
He is being left here, Shakat explained silently. She deliberately soothed her sibling with her own calm certainty. They want him to know the human, she said. They would not have sent him to them, but since he's here and not being hurt, they want him to learn so that later he can teach.
Humans said no one knew how to wait better than the Oankali. Humans, perhaps remembering their earlier short lifespans, tended to hurry without reason.
Tino straightened his back and stared at Dichan. Does he know everything about the Oankali? No. Dichan let his head and body tentacles hang limp. I'm sorry, the resistors don't seem very complex, except biologically. Yet they resist. They would rather die than come here and live easy, pain-free lives with you. Dichan put his food aside and focused a cone of head tentacles on Tino. Is your life pain-free? Sometimes, biologically.
Why do you care so when my own kin group doesn't care? Because you're right, the Akjai said. If I were human, little construct, I would be a resistor myself. All people who know what it is to end should be allowed to continue if they can continue. Sleep.
The caterpillar itself was not good to eat. It was too poisonous. The Uloi who had assembled it had not intended that it be food for anything while it was alive, though it might be killed by ants or wasps if it chose to hunt in one of the trees protected by these. It was safe, though, in the tree it had chosen. Its kind would give the tree a better chance to mature and produce food.
Let me show them to you, not just their interesting bodies and the way they are here and in the trade villages on Earth. Let me show them to you as they are when there are no Oankali around. Why? Because you should at least know them before you deny them the assurance that Oankali always claim for themselves.
We have prints of all of you. We would be sorry to lose you, but at least we would save something. We will be inviting your people to join us again. If any are injured or crippled or even sick in spite of our efforts, we'll offer them our help. They're free to accept our help, yet stay in their villages. Or they can come to us. It aimed a sharp cone of head tentacles at Tino. You've known since I sent you back to your parents years ago that you could choose to come to us.
You're more Oankali than you think, Akeem, and far more Oankali than you look. Yet you're very human. You skirt as close to the contradiction as anyone has dared to go. You're as much of them as you can be, and as much of us as your own dared to make you. That leaves you with your own contradiction.
Tell us your name, he said. A king caught himself smiling. Twice now he had been asked his name. These people seemed to care who he was, not just what he was. A king, he said softly. A king? Rinaldi frowned at him. Is that a human name? Yes. What language? Yoruba. What? What country? Nigeria. Why should you have a Nigerian name? Was one of your parents Nigerian? It means hero. If you put an S on it, it means brave boy. I'm the first boy born to a human woman on Earth since the war.
The human contradiction held them, intelligence at the service of hierarchical behavior. They were not free. All he could do for them, if he could do anything, was to let them be bound in their own ways. Perhaps next time their intelligence would be in balance with their hierarchical behavior and they would not destroy themselves.
How stupid to be sick and know where there was healing and decide to stay sick.
You aren't flawed. I noticed even before I went to my parents that there was a wholeness to you, a strong wholeness. I don't know whether you'll be what your parents wanted you to be, but whatever you become, you'll be complete. You'll have within yourself everything you need to content yourself. Just follow what seems right to you.
God, what's the stuff you smeared me with? Goddamn slimy shit. Akeem did not answer. What is it? Gabe insisted. It stinks. Cooked flesh.
His teacher had warned him that males did not have the control to do such things. Oankali males and females avoided healing not only because they were not needed as healers, but because they were more likely than Uloi to kill by accident. They could be driven to kill unintentionally by interruptions and even by their subjects if things went wrong. Even Gabe should have been in danger. Akin should have struck at him blindly, reflexively, yet he did not.
No one had been able to give him a reason why people who had excellent reasons to suppose they would destroy themselves if they did a certain thing chose to do that thing anyway.
He was frightened and miserable and shaking with anger. He had never felt such a mix of intense emotions. And where had his last words come from? They made him think of Lilith when she was angry. Her anger had always frightened him, yet here it was inside him.
It would be terrible to be small and foolish.
And that's the sound circle. Thank you, everyone. for that. And if we can share the screen again, Sade, please. Isis?
Sorry. The next book, Imago. Child of two species, but a part of neither, a new being must find his way. Human and Oankali have been mating since the aliens first came to Earth to rescue the few survivors of an annihilating nuclear war. The Oankali began a massive breeding project guided by the Uloi, a sexless subspecies capable of manipulating DNA, in the hopes of eventually creating a perfect star-fearing race. Jodas is supposed to be just another hybrid of human and Oankali, but as he begins his transformation to adulthood, he finds himself becoming Uloi, the first ever born to a human mother. Dun, dun, dun. As his body changes, Jodas develops the ability to shapeshift, manipulate matter, and cure or create diseases at will. If this frightened young man is able to master his new identity, Jodas could prove to be the savior of what's left of mankind. Or if he is not careful, he could become a plague that will destroy this new race once and for all. And the live book chat will be Sunday, January 30th, 2022.
There's a question in the chat about when that very exciting cover is going to be available, and it'll be sometime December 2021. So we will be slow reading again for Imago, which is super exciting. So our live show is going to be in the new year on January 30th, Sunday, same time, same place. So it'll be 1 o'clock Eastern Standard. And we will be reading in 3 sessions this time and not 4. So our first slow read session is going to be on January 21st. We are going to read part 1, Metamorphosis. On January 28th, we will read part 2, Exile. And then on January 29th, we will read part 3, Imago. And then January 30th is going to be the live show. So please do participate in the slow reading sessions. And I know for people watching this replay, the slow reading sessions are an opportunity for you to read on pace with a number of other people on Onyx pages. So if you want to read in community, this is one of the options that you have. And it'll start 3 weeks before the live show. And it's different from the live show, obviously, because we're doing it to read the book before the live show commences. So if you want to find out more information, make sure that you have your tickets through Eventbrite for Imago. We will send out links to each of the live show sessions through the email. And you can also find out the dates if you are subscribed to my YouTube channel, which is Onyx Pages. As you know, oops, that's Tati.
Okay. I said, as you know, then oops, I'm muted. Please, for those of you who are searching to purchase your wonderful Black sci-fi books and paraphernalia, do so at SistahSciFi.com. SistahSciFi is owned and operated by our co-host Isis, and she does an excellent job of managing all of that work. So by all means, please, if you want to purchase your books, you want to purchase the Mind of My Mind shirt that's on this website, which I own. It's currently being washed. Yeah, get that from SistahSciFi.com. And also, I'm very excited to share this. Njeri will be doing a vision board workshop on January 2nd of 2022. And if you are not aware, she did a vision board workshop at the beginning of this year as well. This is the second annual, I'm claiming it, because there'll be one every year. And this year's vision board workshop will be focused on and based on Dawn by Octavia E. Butler, and it is called On My Terms. So if you would like to register for that, there is a link to the Eventbrite on Njeri's channel for her shared posts, as well as on her Instagram. I believe I shared it on my Instagram as well. So by all means, go and register for that. It's probably going to be a great time. I'm going to be there. Join.
Okay, complete the survey. It'll be in your inbox soon. We update and transform this live read on a continual basis, but to do that and to do that effectively, we need your input. And for those of you who've completed the survey in the past, thank you. Your feedback is valuable.
And also, there are ways that in which you can keep in touch with us. You can register for the, and I say this every time, I'm going to say it again, you can register for the follow-up sessions at the OEB Slow Read Eventbrite page. If you go through, you'll have to, when you first click the link, even if you go to our Instagram OEB Slow Read page, it will take you to the initial session that we had, which was for Kindred, and it will say that it's out of that, it's already happened. But if you scroll down and just hit the drop down for the dates, the next date that populates will be the discussion for Imago, because Eventbrite is a website and does smart things on its own. So by all means, if you have not already registered for the next slow read, you can register for them all at one time, but if you are doing them one at a time, you can certainly go to the Eventbrite page to do so. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channels, and Njeri's is Onyx Pages, mine is Musical Tati, and you can follow the OEB Slow Read on Twitter at OEB Read, and Instagram is OEB Slow Read.
So we realized after our first Slow Read live show that sometimes people want to sort of decompress and have unscripted, unscheduled time. So we are going to be, I will be staying for maybe about 15 minutes or so after we formally close. So for those of you who are on Zoom, this will be unrecorded. There will be no YouTube live stream, and we can just like, and talk about it. So if you'd like to stay for 15 minutes afterwards, after we formally close, we will have a virtual lounge after party situation.
And the agreements still apply?
Yes. Thank you. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for participating in the Octavia E. Butler Slow Read. Generally, thank you also for coming and being a part of the experience as we get through Lilith's Brood, Xenogenesis. This is our second series in the Slow Read. It is a trilogy. Our next session is going to be the last one, so we're sort of at that midpoint. It continues to be a pleasure to read slowly and luxuriously with folks from all around the world. Thank you for making this awesome, and have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you all so much. And thank you for those of you on YouTube.
All right, so I'm going to stop the live stream.